Hello
Hello.
and welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show. It's lovely to see you. Where my very special guest last time was Mary, now completely different.
Ross.
How we got completely away was Mary Albanese. I was going to say Mary Albanese was on the last show, but this time somebody who looks surprisingly similar. We've got Mary Ross. How are you, Mary?
I'm very good. So I had promised that I would show you some of my paintings.
Absolutely.
Here's a nice painting of the mountains down in the Alaska range. Here's a painting that I teach a painting class up in Alaska every year. And you can find it on Facebook. Go to Paint Like Sidney Lawrence. He was like Alaska's most famous painter, and I teach the world's best Sidney Lawrence style painters, and it's really fun.
Oh, is that right? So all been in a particular style. They look like photographs. I'm sure a lot of people sort of say that to you.
Yeah, they do. And then I had talked about my brother. Now here's a painting I did. It's actually a print of a painting I did, but this was my brother, from Korea.
And we heard in the last episode that he was one of the very first adoptees from Korea during that extraordinary time.
To New York State, yes.
And who's that next to him?
That's his girlfriend, Lina, who is still with us, thank goodness. So I'm back.
I know, it's wonderful to have you back. And I said it was a fascinating insight into your glorious life. And you were, as we say, a pioneer and an inspiration for young women everywhere to say, look, science isn't just for the boys. You can do this. You can become a geologist. You can go and explore, go down that road which people say you can't go down. You can wrestle with polar bears. You can become a jiu-jitsu expert. You can write your books, and you can be a phenomenal success. And what I love about all your books, you've got like the all-girl, no-man little darlings. I saw that. You've got everything is like all good stuff, all very inspirational. You've got the girl with 10 names. What was that one about?
This is my brother's sister-in-law.
Yeah.
She had in around 1979, I believe, she had come over. This was when the Vietnam War was raging, and she was from Laos, which is right near in all of that, and she's Hmong, Hmong, and they were getting kicked out of the country. They were trying to basically wipe out the Hmong race. And once Vietnam fell, the communists took over that whole region, and they were just shooting up the villages, just wiping out entire villages of people. So there's some big stories about this, the killing fields. Her family, she had 4 sisters. The family had to leave their village because they knew their village was going to be soon it was going to be completely destroyed, shot up. They come in, they came in with machine guns and just killed everyone, and they had to escape through the forest, the jungles, over the mountains to try to make it to Thailand, which was neutral and very scary. The happy story ending is that she and her entire family made it across, and then they moved to the U.S. and my brother, when I was visiting him in the hospital, he said, "You've got to meet my sister-in-law. You've got to hear her story." She had dropped in to see him. I said, "Oh, this is an amazing story," and he said, "Tell her the story so she can write the book." So he was so pleased that he had gotten us together so I could write her story.
And that's the glorious thing, because all of your career, and it has been a very, very varied career, but the one common thread is that you are a fantastic storyteller, and you've taken every little nugget of your rich career and turned that into a book somehow or other.
And trying to turn them into movies.
Oh yeah, I know. We're still pitching for that Hollywood deal. I know that's a very good. Ring this number now. Contact your agent. And you do that. I mean, your first book was about your Arctic experience. How did that book come about? What somebody just said you should be publishing, you should be writing your stories. Somebody always says to everybody when they have such a rich life, oh, you should write a book. Well, you went ahead and did that. How did your first book come about?
Well, that wasn't actually my first book. My first book was about Romanian adoption. At the time, I was, because both of my daughters have been adopted from Korea and Thailand. Because, you know, I was involved in international adoption through my brother. And then when I grew up, I stayed with it. And my kids are from, my daughter's from the same orphanage as my brother. After we left Alaska, I started writing, and I wrote a book. I met this woman who had gone to Romania and started an adoption agency, just like Bertha Holt did in Korea. And I was fascinated by it. So I followed her around, and I wrote her story about how she brought all these children over. And that was my first book. So I had always written, I'd always been writing. And it wasn't, you know, and I thought about an Alaska book, and, you know, I tried to write it right away, and it wasn't working, because after you've been someplace, when you first go someplace, your views are so fresh, you know, everything's so alive and so amazing. But after you've been there a while, it just seems normal and commonplace. You know, like at our wedding, there was a sign that said on our lovely venue, if you can read this, you're too close, I'll shoot you dead. If you don't believe me, ask around. And, you know, my mother-in-law came, here's the wedding, and here's the you know, the welcome sign. And she's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And, you know, we thought nothing of it, because this is, you know, and it takes a while to distance yourself from it and see it with fresh eyes again. So the book didn't come out until quite a while after I had left.
Right, and you also had Kira as well. That sort of side. What was the story of that?
Oh, the coloring book.
Yeah.
We lived in Juneau for a while, and I met this guy who worked for the Alaska Raptor Center, and he had this peregrine falcon who had been injured and couldn't be released to the wild because she couldn't hunt anymore. Yeah, that's Kira.
Well, you see, I can pull up these things gloriously.
Very good.
The joy of contacting my every source of information. I'm not even calling on the spirit. It's a wonderful spirit called Google that I have.
The Google spirit, yes. we like the Google spirit. So I said, well, would you like a coloring book about this bird? And he said, oh, that would be great. So, you know, because the bird lived with him, and it was a kind of a talking point for him to discuss the important work that the Raptor Center did. And so, you know, the bird would go to schools with him. It would perch on his shoulder, perch on his refrigerator at home. And, you know, it loved the attention. It would love the boys and girls, you know, talking about birds of the wild and why we need to save them. And so I did this cute little coloring book, and they were able to sell this to, you know, to schools and stuff.
And it's really good. And there's something very satisfying about seeing your work. And you had an experience with seeing your work on a London bus. Tell us about that.
Oh my goodness, yes. I worked, I got this job. It was like one of the best writing jobs, because it paid. It wasn't like a spec, you know, where you do it and you hope somebody picks it up. It was called Chase Magna. And they had an office right there in one of those big buildings right by the London Eye, you know, one of those big fancy office buildings where you had to use fingerprints to get in the door. You know, it's so high tech, it was like James Bond. And so I was writing stories for this character that they were going to be doing cartoons of, and I was writing the character. So I got to create the character, and, you know, it was called Sprite. It was like a water sprite. And
there you go. We can,
yes,
again,
yes. So I was taking my niece, who had come to England for a trip, and I was taking her to show her all of my places. And she said, when we went to the office, and, you know, she saw the drawings of the artist. I didn't do the cartoons, I did the writing. And we were coming out. She said, wait a minute, there's your character on the bus. And I said, no. And she said, yeah, there it is. So this is my Sex in the City moment, when, you know, when she sees herself, in this case, my avatar, my sprite, on the city bus. And I'm even wearing pink, just like she's wearing the pink.
I know, glorious. No, it's glorious. It's that wonderful, wonderful moment. And it's seeing your work, it gets really, really satisfying. And Sprite is that sort of spiritist sort of character as well. And we touched on last time how you met Loraine, and you came over and you were telling us that you were waiting to come and see a very famous TV medium. And as fate would have it, and it happened a lot in your life, as fate would have it, you were a little bit late and they'd shut the door and they were recording and there's no way we're having this person come all this way over here. She'll have to wait outside. And you sat outside with your 20 pounds, your $30 in your pocket, and you came across somebody who didn't look like a traditional medium. They didn't have the sparkly outfits, wasn't particularly flamboyant, and just sitting there quietly. Take the story over from there.
Okay, so I sat down and she said, okay, I'm going to tape this and give you the tape because once I get into it, you're going to forget a lot of this. And I'm thinking, I don't forget things, you know, I'm okay, yeah, whatever you want. And so she started off and the first thing, she's like, oh, your father's here. He's got the red hair like you and the temper. He says he's got the temper. And he had stomach cancer. That's why he died. And stomach cancer is a rare one. You know, you don't just say this. It's a very rare type. And then she said, and the young man is here. And the reason I had gone was because my friend had just died and his sister and I had agreed to come and meet up. She actually got into the TV presenter session and I missed it. And she said, the young man's here and your father's showing him the ropes. And the young man, this is more recent, and he died from a liver cancer, and he had turned so green before he died that he looked like a monster from a movie. And a friend of mine had been there 2 days before he died, and he told him he looked like the Star Wars guy with the green, you know, not Darth Vader, the green guy. And so I was just a little bit in shock, you know, and you kind of go into shock when someone starts telling you the details of your life this clearly. And she said, oh, you're the writer that's going to write my books. And I was like, okay, you know, I mean, I didn't know what to say. And so I followed her around for 4 years. She kind of went off the map for a while because she had a really serious miscarriage and stopped breathing. She was officially dead for 7 minutes, and they brought her back. And so she had, you know, for a while after that, she had very poor health. But as she told me later, she said, I was really good before, but now that I've been to the other side, I'm, you know, it's even stronger now. And the reason, you know, the reason I've always thought that she picked me, and I hadn't said this to her at the time until many years later, is that as a child, I had also died. I had climbed out of my high chair and nosedived on the floor. My mother came in, I was on the floor not breathing, and a neighbor came over and did mouth to mouth and brought me back. But I remember what it was like being in this place where I wasn't allowed to go forward, I wasn't allowed to go back, I was just contained until at some point, you know, I woke up back in my life. So if you have been to the other side, it's easier to understand it.
So did you go to the other side at that stage then?
Well, I had gone to, yeah, I was not breathing. I was not alive for however long it took her to run and get the neighbor.
So what was your recollection of your time on the other side?
Well, I wasn't allowed to go too far into it. I felt like I was in like a holding room, a waiting room, where I wasn't allowed to see anything. Nothing was happening. There was no colors. I was just stuck there. So when I was a little kid, I was afraid to go into that kitchen by myself because I didn't want to go back to that place. You know, I didn't think I was ready to go back to that place. And it wasn't until years later that my mother told me that what had happened, that I had died, that I put together the reason I was afraid to go near that chair in the kitchen was that, you know, because I had this memory of, you know, being by that chair and then being stuck somewhere where I couldn't go either way, and then I came back. But if you have had a near-death experience, they call it near death, but you've actually died and come back. It's like you have an understanding that you wouldn't have otherwise. You know, it's like if no one's ever been to Thailand and you go there and you have a great time, it's very hard to explain to other people who haven't been there what it's like. So you have this, you know, this understanding without even knowing how to explain it of something beyond, that something beyond exists.
And what's also interesting, Mary, is that so often people say that there are two sides to, well, more than two sides to every way of looking at things. And I always encourage people to keep an open mind, question everything. And so often scientists, they would say there are two sides, but you get the spiritual side and the scientists. And the scientists would be very analytical, and they would sort of turn around and say, well, it can't be this, it's all about Darwin and all that sort of stuff. This is how it happens. To get somebody who's a scientist, such as yourself, talking about this sort of side, that must have been quite unusual, isn't it?
Well, you know, not really, because when you think about it scientifically, you know, the first rule of any science is that nothing ever disappears. It changes. It changes into another form. Energy, mass, matter. It doesn't just vaporize into nothingness. It changes into some other form. So, you know, when you think of it that way, this makes total sense. We don't just turn off like a light bulb. Even the light bulb doesn't turn off. You hold it, it's still warm. You look at a body after they've died, it doesn't look the same. It doesn't look like the person is sleeping. There's something essentially different. Something is no longer there. Where is it? It's over there. So scientifically, it makes total sense to me.
But you know that a lot of your colleagues will disagree with you, and I'm sure you've had some.
Yes, and those same colleagues back in the Middle Ages would have said the Earth is flat because it hasn't been proved that it's round.
Yes,
and I know that mindset. But the really true scientists will say, I don't know. I can't say there's no life after death. I haven't been there. I don't have the evidence either way. It's only the ones that would have jumped on the Earth is flat wagon that will say, no.
Okay, and I think it's, if you don't mind, it's always interesting to explore these sort of things, because so there are still people in this world who believe that the Earth is flat. Talk to me first of all about the science of that.
Well, if you go up in a plane, you see the curve. I mean, you go up on a tall mountain, you see the curve. That's not flat. That curves. You can see it with your eyes if you go high enough.
So the various flat earthers, and we will have people on the show, and this is what I love about it, you keep an open mind and have a look at that sort of stuff. So the fact that you can see it for yourself means that you can prove that it's not a flat.
To yourself. You know what? My job is not to prove to anyone anything. My job is to explore the world and based on my experiences and my knowledge and my information, come up with my own thoughts. And you know, you go high enough, I see that it curves. You know, on the mountains in Alaska, I could see the curve from up there. And you know, when I fell out of my high chair, I could see that there's something else.
Okay.
Another place.
Looking at that, and it always amuses me in that sort of mischievous way when people talk about the Flat Earth Society, and there is such a thing, as you know, and they always say, and I will have them on the show, and we'll talk to them, and I treat everybody with respect, and we just listen and let them talk. But what I love about it in their advertising, they say we are the Flat Earth Society, and we have members all around the globe.
The square globe. You better not fall off those corners.
Well, there's an element there.
Good one. Oh, well, tell me when you have them on. I'll listen because
you'll come along. It's going to be wonderful. It's very good. It's always amuses me. But so talk to me then. But let's look at your views on this sort of stuff. How do you? I mean, do you believe in evolution?
Of course, I was a geologist. I found some of the only crinoid fossils, the first crinoid fossils in the Brooks Range.
That's what I would have thought. And we looked at that last time, and the glorious stories, and as you say, rocks tell a story. They tell a story of how things evolved over the years, and I was layer upon layer, and we crack it open, which is why you whack it with the hammer, and that reveals the story within. Talk to me then about combining. We did definitions last time when we were talking with Loraine, because I think it's very helpful where people are looking at this subject with an open mind and saying, okay, let's talk about definition, because people talk about mediums and psychics and spiritualists and so on and so forth, and what people can believe from a religious point of view, combining religion and science and so on and so forth. It would be helpful because clearly when you met Loraine, you already had some beliefs, which is why you were there in the first place, yes?
You know, I had a hope that something would happen, but you know, I'd been to these before, and I'd been to some. You know, I had a few readings before. Sometimes they were surprisingly interesting, and sometimes they were completely off the mark. And you never know. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was driving an ice cream truck, and this woman came up, you know, and she said, I don't have money, but I'll read your fortune for an ice cream cone. And you know, so, okay. I said, no, she wanted a sundae. I said, I'll downgrade you to an ice cream cone. And she said, okay, done. So she said, your boyfriend, he loves you very much, but he can't say it. And on Friday, you will get a letter and he will tell you. I said, okay, there's your ice cream cone. That Friday, I got a 6-page letter from my boyfriend telling me he loved me very much and couldn't say it out loud.
Oh, fantastic. And if you'd waited till Sunday, you would have got a longer letter.
If I'd given her, yeah, if I'd given her
See, you're cheapskated there, the poor medium, you know, without the cherry on top. Just
no cherry.
imagine. Your whole life would be mapped out by now. You wouldn't have needed to live the life. You would have just had it told to you.
Yeah, she might just tell me, you know, go to Alaska and I will do this. Well, so, you know.
Bears, save the big guy, take him 5 miles when all the men wouldn't have done that, all that sort of stuff.
All that, but, you know, I mean, but then, I mean, you know, there's, I used to live in New York State, and you go to the state fair and there'd be, you know, the tents and stuff. And, you know, it was the, oh, I see you are very young, you know, I see you, you have brown hair. I see you have, you know, oh, you have parents waiting for you. You know, I mean, like, you know, there's, in any field, there's truth and there's scam, you know.
Yeah,
you just have to find the good ones.
Yeah, and we touched on that with Loraine, and we'll come on to how people can identify the scammers, if you like. But your first spiritual experience was at what age?
Spiritual experience? Oh gosh, I think my scary one, besides the, you know, the one where I died, I was in high school, and I had gone to this lake with my friends, and we were there, and I saw this kid that I had gone to grade school with, and I hadn't seen him in years. We were in different schools, different classes, and I couldn't take my eyes off him. And they said, okay, we have to go now. And I said, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And they said, well, we're leaving and we're your ride, so you have to come. So I went home with them, and they dropped me off at home. I had a journal back then. There was like some weird dark mood that came over me. And I started writing in my journal, drawing, because, you know, I've always drawn. And I drew a picture of this kid. And I said, the child is dead, the child is dead, he's gone. And it was just horrible, horrible, horrible feeling. And then it just drifted away. And I was normal again. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what that was. I walked downstairs, the TV was on, the news was on. He had drowned 2 minutes after I left. And so I had sort of known something was going to happen. I didn't know enough at the time to know what it was, or to be able to stop it or anything, because I didn't understand it, and it just scared me. And so I forced all of that away, forced it away. I didn't want it, didn't want to know, anytime any one of those feelings came in, I just force it away. And then it wasn't until years and years and years later that I met Loraine, and she said, don't be afraid of it. You know, and Loraine was, you know, she understands this. She understands when they tell you messages. And, you know, you can't always prevent things, but, you know, you can only do your best. And so because I trusted Lorraine's understanding of it, you know, I was able to like go back into that with her.
Right. So that was your first experience where you foresaw, if you like, that somebody was going to die, and tragically they did die in the circumstances which you saw. You then tried to bury that sort of...
Yeah, I did for years and years. I buried it. Anytime I had a strange feeling, I completely buried it. I just refused to listen, just, you know, angry block. And you can block it, you know. A lot of people are more psychic than they realize, and their parents have told them, no, 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 this is all your imagination, you know, you're not seeing your grandmother, it's an imaginary friend, you know, and you have this sixth, most people have got some kind of intuitive sixth sense, and it's one that is hard to quantify because not everyone has the same amount, but most people have some, and it's very easy to block. You know, children are much more intuitive in this world, but it's like a muscle. You don't exercise it or you shut it down, it's not going to work. So you know, so I had just shut it down, and you know, it was pushed it away. And then Loraine kind of saw that you know, I had this connection with the other side. She saw it, and I was sitting with her one time, and there was a couple of us there, and she said, "Oh, I just realized everyone at this table, we've all been dead before." And you know, I was like, well, we get it. That's why we get it. We don't have to ask 1,000 questions. We have an intuitive understanding that there is something else. We don't need to be, you know, we don't need to be convinced. We've felt it. We've been somewhere that we know there's something else.
And looking at the science of it, it's always interesting hearing a scientist trying to explain these sort of things. I mean, Loraine will say that everybody has some sort of psychic ability, and you can turn it up a little bit. She can teach you how to turn up that psychic ability.
Open it up, yeah. Yeah, she
and
can't really teach you to have it, but she can explain when you get certain feelings to recognize it.
Okay, so talk to me, what sort of feelings would those be?
Oh, wow. Okay, like last night, we were driving home. I said to my husband, there's going to be deer jumping in the road. Drive slower, there's going to be deer jumping in the road. I don't know. I mean, why did I say it? I thought it, and I said it. When I say it out loud, it's not coming from me, it's coming from somewhere else. We were driving home, and a deer jumped in the road, and he was going slow enough he could stop, and we didn't get hit by the deer. You don't know where it comes from. You just get a thought, a feeling. And for me, you know, it's different for every person, but for me, if I say it out loud, I know I have had it strong enough to say it out loud that it's not coming from me, it's coming from somewhere else.
Sure, and you will know that the skeptics will say, well, it's likely if you drive a particular road at night, there will be deer on some occasions, and the skeptics would say...
Sure, but we've driven on that road many, many times, because it's from my mother-in-law's house to my house. And only 2 times have I said, watch out for deer.
Okay, and both occasions there were deer?
That jumped in the road, yes.
On both occasions, 100% hit rate?
Yes.
But without hitting, sorry, yes. I mean, obviously you avoided the deer as a result. Okay.
Yes. And,
okay.
You know, there's times when I will say something out loud, and for me, that's my trigger. Right. If I feel strongly enough that I'm going to say it out loud, because, you know, you get thoughts all the time. You can't say all your thoughts out loud because, you know, they're just bouncing around in your head. But if I say it out loud to the person next to me, it always happens.
100%.
You know, I've never figured it out, but it's definitely way more than 50-50. You know,
Okay.
it's at least 75.
So somewhere between that. So you found yourself, was it the first, what do you call, when you went to that, what do you call it, a psychic fair? What do you call it when you came to see Loraine the first time?
Mind, body, soul.
Mind, body, soul. What would that?
Yeah, in London, the Mind, Body, Soul fair, convention, conference, whatever. And, you know, people are selling crystals and I think my favorite one was psychic weight loss, you know.
Psychic weight loss. There
Yes,
you go.
yes, you know.
How does that work?
Well, for 20 pounds, they sit you
20
in a
pounds,
booth,
you lose 20 pounds, but you don't
and they
lose any
say,
weight.
you are going to lose weight, you are going to lose weight. Thank you for your 20 pounds. And you go home and, you know.
No, they should do it. But being a lawyer, they should do it in a clever way. They should say, you're going to lose 20 pounds. And you give the 20 pounds, say, thank you. And then you're done. You know, that's the 20 pounds you've lost. We have it over here.
The 20 pounds you've lost.
You see, we could have done this. But I could have been a lawyer.
Right, I did lose 20 pounds.
There you go. There you go. So it's true. I could have 100%. I could set up a little table saying, you will lose psychic weight loss. You will lose 20 pounds. And we could do that. I could get all those testimonies from celebrities and everything. People would come to me. They'd come flocking.
Andrew made me lose 20 pounds. He was correct. His hit rate at the 20-pound loss is 100%.
Absolutely. There's you with your dear. I've got my 20 pounds. You know, this could be my thing. I love it.
Perfect.
It sounds good. So how many, so let's tell me about the people who go to these fairs. How many of these fairs have you been to before you met Loraine?
No, that was the first one.
Okay.
Because my friend had just died. I was not living in London. I was living in Surrey. So, you know, it was like a train into town, and then you have to go to the...
Whereabouts in Surrey? I love Surrey.
Yeah.
Whereabouts were you?
I was in Oxshott.
Okay.
Yeah, this was my first one. You know, I just went to see, you know, I figured some things might be good. Some things were going to be, you know, not so, you know, not exact, but, you know, it was fun. You know, it was like you go to the movies. You don't know if you're going to love the movie or hate it, or you go try it out, you know.
Sure. And just like the movie with lots of different screens, there are some great movies, the big blockbusters, and there's also some pretty sort of movies. When you go to one of these psychic fairs, what's the sort of combination? How many are good and how many are?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think I bought one of those salt lamps. It had pretty colors. I don't know that I got anything from the salt. I did buy these vitamins from somebody that, you know, he was like raving about these the stem cell. They would boost your stem cells, and you know, I bought a bottle and I didn't use it. But then years later, I was really sick. I had a sore throat for like 9. Oh no, here's
come back. That's what happened. I can't claim that.
Oh dear.
That was the ghost of the stem cells of the salt you didn't use. If you used it earlier, you wouldn't have coughing.
But anyway, it turns out these I had these in my cupboard, and I had this sore throat for 9 months, and then I remembered that bottle and I took one, and the sore throat was gone. I thought, okay, this is just a coincidence. It came back 2 weeks later. I took another pill. It was gone. I've been taking these pills ever since. I think in the last 12 years, I've had maybe two colds.
And as a scientist, I mean, you would obviously warn people about, make sure you go to a real doctor as well. You don't want to encourage people not to take medicine.
Sure, but you know, I'd gone to the doctor and they said, you've got a long-term cold. We can't do anything about a cold. You know, doctors, you know, virus is not treatable with antibiotics, you know. So some of these would work and some would not work. What is the sort of percentage? I mean, when you're looking at people, are there tips on how to spot? Oh, easily. Okay. You go to one of these psychic fairs.
How to spot the fakes?
Oh, easiest thing. Everyone's got a sign-up sheet right in front of them, right? Check their sign-up sheet. If it's empty and no one's signing up for them, someone's been there in the morning. They've told their friends to stay away. Everyone's staying away. Don't go. Loraine is always full. Lorraine's always got a line for people with her. Once the first person has their reading. They tell all their friends. They all start booking, and you can't get in.
Very good. So what I will do for my £20 for £20, I will fill in all the details of fake people, and I'll put that on in front of them. That people think they've got to wait a long time to get a booking with me.
Yes. You say, oh, I might have one in at the end of the day if you can wait 5 hours. Oh, I've just had a cancellation. I've just had a cancellation in the next 3 minutes.
Isn't that great? So I could do, I'll tell you what, Mary, I think we're on to something here. And I could say, because I've always wanted to say this, I could say they cancelled because of unforeseen circumstances.
That you foresaw.
See, I reckon we're on to a winner, don't you?
You told them, go ahead and sign up, but I believe you may have unforeseen circumstances.
There you go. We love it. We're going to rock this, totally rock this with the geology. I love it.
Well, back to the book.
Back to the book. So you were there on this fantastic psychic thing. Hadn't been for a little while, but you were there on a mission, and you wanted to get back in touch. Was that the idea?
Well, I wanted to. My friend had just died, and I was in deep grieving, and his sister and I agreed to go to this thing and see if we could, say hello. And we did, I mean, the messages were very specific, very clear that it was him. Even the sense of humor. Loraine was like, who is this guy? And so the sister came out of the TV psychic, and I said, you need to go see her. So she signed up right away. She got into one of her last appointments in the day. She came out of there going, oh my gosh, I just talked to him. She's been measured by an outside examining thing, and she had like an 85% hit rate, which is very high. I mean, it was very, it's not like, it's very high. It's extremely high this is not a yes or no test. This is a deep specifics. And a lot of times people don't understand because she's channeling their grandparents or their great grandparents, and they don't know the stuff, so they can't verify it or not. I think that's her 15% of wiggle room, because it can't be verified. But for 85% is very high.
So just so, and again, as a scientist, it's always very helpful to know what sort of knowledge. Well, first of all, how does it work? I mean, when you see people, and you can get, is she actually seeing the person? Is she actually feeling their spirit? How does it work?
Well, it does. I can't do that, so I can't say exactly what she sees and feels and hears. But her spirit guide, Ramos, tells her that they're here, passes information. She might get a visual, she might not. Everything comes through Ramos. He's the conduit. He's got her people waiting there on the other side, and some of them, she might have like 2 or 3 at a time, and she'll have to say, slow down, 1 at a time. I'm only got one mind. But she's very, very right on dead center about connecting to spirits on the other side, because she's always just been able to. Now, predicting the future, that's a little different, because humans have free will, and so there is more than one future. So that might be off, because she might be reading one future, but someone makes a decision, a different decision, and it can go a different way. But if it's for something like a body that's going to break down, that's going to happen no matter what decision happens, and she can see those pretty accurately.
So in terms of, what works pretty accurately is previous stuff and stuff which is happening at the moment, but the future is too fluid to predict.
The future is very fluid, unless it's something that, like, a bridge is going to collapse. That bridge is always going to collapse. You can't, someone's not going to make a decision that changes that.
Well, they can do. I mean, as a scientist, you will know if this heavy lorry goes over the bridge, it's the final straw that makes the bridge collapse. If the lorry, through its free choice, goes a different way, the bridge won't collapse.
Yeah, but there's going to be 3,000 lorries going over that bridge every day. The collective weight of that, scientifically, if that bridge is going to collapse and nobody knows about it, it's still going to collapse.
But to take, I mean, great example. So scientifically, you know that if another lorry goes over that bridge, it's going to collapse. You, as the psychic, if you're told that information,
if you're told there's a weakness that bridge is going to collapse.
Yes.
If there's a weakness, it's going to collapse sometime in the spring.
Right. So you can tell people that, and they can go and have a look. They can send some people out. They could change that.
Well, I don't know. I'm not the psychic. I'm just the writer.
Oh, no, I know. But as a writer, and it's a good question. And Loraine said last time she would ask Ramos a few questions on behalf of, because I asked her a few questions, including about her own path.
Oh, now Lorraine's past. The first time I met her, she said, okay, I was trying to figure out how I was going to write her books. And, then we met up later and she was telling me things and I was telling her things. And she said, okay, and, my husband, now this is my third husband. And I said, wait a minute. Your third husband? Don't they tell you? And she said, yes, but I'm a rebel. I don't always listen. And at that point I thought, yes, I'm 100% there.
There you go. So even though she knows what's going to happen,
well, even though sometimes she gets told things, when she was younger, she wanted to have her life her way, and you don't always listen to your parents.
A lot of people will identify as the fact that they're all rebellious. I mean, and this is the other thing, because as a scientist, when you're listening to the pattern, the language pattern, there are lots of obviously what people call Barnum statements, which could apply to everybody, and they work backwards and they make it fit.
Yeah, no, she didn't do Barnum statements. It was like, your father is here. He's got the red hair. He had stomach cancer, and he died before the young man who had the liver cancer, who looked like a monster from a monster movie. And there was a baby girl who's got the baby girl on the other side. And I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, you're the writer that's going to write my books. This is boom, 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 boom. There's no Barnum statements. They're all like, let me dig into the deepest thing that's happened to you and pull it out. And here it is. No, just 12 seconds.
No, and you have an audio recording of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Will you play that for us next time?
I've moved 3 times since, and I don't know where all my, my old tapes are. I can look for it, but I don't know.
That'd be great. I know we'd love to hear it. I mean,
I don't, I think I use those tapes for my books, and I think I probably taped over it.
Oh, you'd never tape over that. It's too special. You don't want to do things like that. I would keep that treasured and lock it in a safe.
Oh, it's locked here. This is even more special.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we'll have a look. We'll find a recording of something which would be fantastic. So you then went through that process. Talk to me then as a scientist. How is it working? Talk to me about the science behind it. How does that happen?
Well, the science behind it is that when I was very young, I had gone someplace that wasn't here, that was someplace else. So from personal experience, I knew there was a someplace else. And Loraine shows up and says, okay, I know this, and this, and this. And I'm thinking, okay, she's got answers. She knows things that she shouldn't know. Now, I didn't totally believe in Ramos for a long time because it sounded a little new agey. She knew things. I knew she knew things. I didn't know how she knew things. And I really wasn't totally convinced that there was this Egyptian guy, Ramos, on the other side telling her this stuff. But I knew she knew things. I didn't know how, but it didn't matter. I was writing the book, and documenting what happened was important to me. Documenting exactly what happened when she did these meetings with people was very important. And I knew she knew things about me that she shouldn't have. I didn't know how. So anyway, I was recording and taking notes while she was doing a show, and she went up to a woman, and she had always explained Ramos to me as like a gray shape that stood next to her. And she was talking to this woman, and the woman just went, and Loraine said, "Oh, you saw him, didn't you?" And she said, and so I was like, wow, did that woman see Ramos? So at the end of the show, I went straight up to her and I said, "What did you see?" She said, "It was a gray shape, like standing right next to Loraine. And he looked, you know, he looked like he's tall, and he, you know," and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe this, you know, this is real. So, so I said, well, Loraine, you know, if Ramos is real, why don't we get together and I'm digging up this picture here, and oh, where's the picture? Why don't we get together and you tell me what he looks like, and I'll draw him, and we'll, you know, we'll put his picture in the book.
No, I've seen the picture in the book with the long.
So we started, and I got my paper out, and Loraine's sitting there, and I said, "Okay, he looks like this. Oh, no, his chin is like this, right?" And she's like, "Uh-huh." And, "Oh, he looks like, oh, no, his nose is more like this, right?" And she's like, "Uh-huh." And his eyes, oh, no, they're a little far. She said, "Mary, I'm not saying anything." And I said, "What do you mean? You're telling me what he looks like." And she said, "I'm not saying anything. You're doing it all." And so this is the picture. And so I did this picture, and she said, "You're a psychic sketch artist." And I said, no. And she said, "I didn't say anything at all." She said, "You need to come to my next show with your sketchbook and draw the people." And her daughter, who I think she was 9, or she was young, not quite a teenager, she walked in as we were talking. She walked in the room, looked at my picture, and she said, "Oh, you drew Ramos." I was like, oh my God, he's real.
And how does that make you feel? I mean, again, as a scientist, you're getting messages from somewhere. Talk to me about the science of that.
The science of that, well, this, you know, science is you do a test, and you determine the validity or the non-validity, or maybe no validity, no answer. Well, the test is that I was drawing this face that I had never seen before, and she recognized it, and her daughter recognized it. So the science to me is that here I was doing, you know, not realizing I was doing an experiment, but I was doing an experiment, and here's to me, this was pretty solid. So I called up my family. I said, "Look, oh my God, you won't believe this. I'm a psychic sketch artist." And my brother said, "Well, of course you are." Of course you are. So, you know, so I went with her to the shows, and I did pictures, and sometimes they say, "I don't know who that is," and sometimes they just start bawling, you know, just bawling and saying, "Oh my God, he sent me this message for this picture."
And that's because, I mean, you're a very talented artist, you're a very talented writer. Are you saying, because, but you say that, so you are using your psychic energies to do that as well. Is that how it works?
Apparently, you know, I certainly don't have them as much as Loraine does. Loraine is like, you know, very, very gifted in this regard. And I just have, you know, some feelings every once in a while that tend to be true. But when I go to her shows, it's ramped up, and I'm able to do these drawings.
And so it's based on, I think we were saying beforehand, so as far as you're concerned, you can look at the past, you can look at the present, but the future is variable. So you can't predict the future.
If there's human decisions in the mix.
Right.
If it's not human decision, like someone's got cancer they don't know of, that's going to happen anyway. That cancer is only going to get worse unless they get it treated. Right. But certain things, you know, if you marry this guy or marry this guy, this is choice. Right. So, you know, there's when choice and free will are in the mix, many things can happen. So she has told people, there was one woman, she said, "You're pregnant." The woman was obviously pregnant. She said, "There's a problem with your pregnancy. You need to go to your doctor right now." And the woman called up the doctor, and he said, "Oh, no, we've been tracking you. You're fine." She said, "No, I need to come in." And they said, why do you need to come in? And she didn't want to say, my psychic told me, you know. She said, I'm not feeling well. And they said, okay, all right, come in. She went in and they said, oh my God, you know, your babies are in distress. They, you know, we've got to do an emergency operation right now or they'd be dead. And, you know, Loraine saved her kids, her twins.
And I think it's always good. And what I like to do is to say you analyze the stories and have a look at that. So to get the understanding, so you look at the past, you can look at the present in terms of things. For the future, it's about variables, but it's more a question of if you do this, this will happen. Is that a fair summary?
Well, it depends. You know, it's not. You know, if you marry this guy, what's going to happen? Oh, well, you know, 1,000 things will happen. But it's not. It's the future is not set in concrete. People have free will. We have been given free will, so that when we do the right thing, it's our own choice. Because if you do the right thing because you're programmed to do it like a robot, it's not the right thing, it's just the program thing. So we have choices and we need to own up to our own responsibilities as a human being and be responsible to the other people and other things and make choices based on what we feel is the right way to go, not just for myself, but just is the higher path. Right. And you know, that's the mission. That's our job, is to be here. And honestly, I didn't know a lot of this stuff until we started this current book, because usually Loraine just reads a person. Oh, your aunt's here. She says, you know, check under the couch cushion. That's where you're going to find that ring you've been looking for 20 years. And you know, super specific stuff like, why are they telling me that your father died in an easy chair with a remote in his hand? You know, and the woman starts crying because he died in an easy chair with a remote in his hand. And Loraine will say, well, why are they saying that they didn't find him for 3 days? And she said, because they didn't find him for 3 days. And Loraine will say, he feels very sorry that he missed so much of your life. And you know, she's able to give people real comfort and peace if she can give them a message from that person that's specific to them, that tells them they know they made mistakes and they really do care about them.
Okay. Well, in the next episode, what I'd like to do is to dig a bit deeper into how the two of you collaborate. But for now, Mary, thank you very much for joining me. So thank you very much indeed to Loraine's wonderful author and sketcher, the psychic sketcher, Mary Ross. We'll be getting Mary back on the show to work out a little bit more about how they actually collaborate. But if you are touched by any of the issues or you'd like to be a guest yourself, write to me at guests@octopustv.com. That's guests@octopustv.com. But for now, I've been Andrew Eborn. You've been great. Thank you so much for joining me. See you next time. Bye-bye.